Black patriarch.
The Democratic Party was once the party of white supremacy, supporting slavery and the Ku Klux Klan. National politics devolved into bitter controversy over whether new states entering the Union should be permitted to allow slavery. Democrats said they should, since their support base was strongest in slaveholding states. Yet a new Northern party, the Republicans, sprang up in opposition to expanding slavery any further. When Republican Abraham Lincoln won the presidency, the South seceded, and the Civil War began. Going into the 50s and 60s, race and the South returned to the forefront of national politics, with the civil rights movement attempting to end segregation and ensure blacks truly have the right to vote. Then, in 1964, it's Democratic President Lyndon Johnson who signs the Civil Rights Act into law. And it's Republican presidential nominee Barry Goldwater who opposes it, arguing that it expands government power too much. A massive switch-up takes place. Black voters, some of whom had already been shifting from the Republican Party, convert almost entirely to their new advocates, the Democrats. The white voters in the South, who had been staunch Democrats, start to really resent the big government interference here and in other matters like abortion rights and school prayer. Over the next 3 decades, whites in the South switch to the GOP, which makes the South an overwhelmingly Republican region. This chart shows the presidential vote for black voters. Around the 1960s, black voters who had already been moving towards the Democratic Party would begin overwhelmingly supporting the Democrats from then on, and conversely, the Republicans would take a huge hit among black voters. Meanwhile, white Southerners moved away from the Democratic Party they had been loyal to for so long, in part because of race, but also because of a suspicion of big government and a desire to defend traditional values against liberal activists. Democrats would go from dominating the South to losing almost all influence in the region.
Some aspects of black power are very disturbing to us because it means revolution, it means violence. But other aspects of black power are very constructive because it means that black people, they want to stand on their own feet. They want to have black banks and not just go to white banks. They want to have black businesses and not just go to the white businesses. And they should have, and they will have.
Linda Taylor, a notorious figure in Chicago in the 1970s and 80s, dubbed America's welfare queen and vilified by President Ronald Reagan.
Her name is Linda Taylor. The Illinois Legislative Advisory Committee on Public Assistance investigated, came up with 82 charges of welfare fraud, perjury, and bigamy.
Bush and Dukakis on crime. Bush supports the death penalty for first-degree murderers. Dukakis not only opposes the death penalty, he allowed first-degree murderers to have weekend passes from prison. One was Willie Horton, who murdered a boy in a robbery, stabbing him 19 times. Despite a life sentence, Horton received 10 weekend passes from prison. Horton fled, kidnapped a young couple, stabbing the man and repeatedly raping his girlfriend. Weekend prison passes. Dukakis on crime.
You should be ashamed. Yeah, you should be ashamed.
I can talk about tough campaigns, and the McCain campaign in 2000 got distracted. They heard some crazy rumor that some one person may have spread something intended to hurt the family because they'd adopted a black baby. Who would have voted against John McCain because of that? Maybe a few hundred people in a state of 3.6 million? It's an insult to South Carolina or to any state when you say that one narrow, negative, off-the-wall thing defeated a candidate. The South has got a complicated history on race. The South has got the same thing America's got, a complicated history on race.
A little history lesson for you. If any race of people should not have guilt about slavery, it's Caucasians. No other race has ever fought a war for the purpose of ending slavery, which we did. Nearly 600,000 people killed in the Civil War. It's preposterous that Caucasians are blamed for slavery when they've done more to end it than any other race. So, nigga with an A on the end. Well, I think I can now. Isn't that the point? Because it's not racist.
There are problems in the African American precincts, especially in the inner city. However, the problems have little to do with white people, rather a corrosive culture that does not confront child neglect and antisocial behavior on the streets. That's what's driving poverty and dysfunction. And the excuse that slavery, Jim Crow, and other historical injustices should now define how black citizens are treated is insane.
As the 21st century begins, America is going through a major demographic shift in the form of Hispanic immigration, both legal and illegal. Democrats and business elites tend to support reforming immigration laws so that the over 10 million unauthorized immigrants in the U.S. would get legal status. On the Republican side, tough on immigration policies and rhetoric became popular. The huge influx of Hispanic voters has especially benefited Democrats. These demographic shifts helped the Democratic Party, once the advocates of white supremacy and slavery, to elect the first black president in 2008, showing just how much the party had changed over the years.
We're going to need more legal immigration.
Immigrants are an economic engine of vitality for our country. They make things happen.
We need to figure out how to have more legal immigration.
Immigrants are the lifeblood of our society. I think probably the most dedicated Americans are those who come here as immigrants.
Ann Coulter is here, a conservative commentator, attorney, and author of the new book, Adios, America, the left's plan to turn our country into a third world hellhole. You are afraid of the browning of America.
No, I mean, the browning of America phrase, that isn't my phrase. Obviously, these people aren't reading liberal magazines, web pages, or watching MSNBC. This is something that is constantly celebrated on the left. Ha ha, white America, you're dying off. And that's it. Then liberal policies win him? Well, first of all, this was a specific plan to change the demographics in America in a way no country has ever been changed.
Whose plan?
Well, Teddy Kennedy's, the 1965 Immigration Act, and it was backed by a lot of Democrats, whom I quote in the book, lying
the
about
Democratic
it.
voting rolls?
Oh, yes, to help the Democrats, and they brag about it.
You made kind of a provocative comment in your new book here, Mugged, and I think it's on page 151. You write that various groups, feminists, gay rights groups, and those who are defending immigrants have commandeered the black civil rights experience.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
Yes, I'm glad you asked that because I think it's one of the most important points of the book. I mean, I think the way liberals have treated blacks like children and many of their policies have been harmful to blacks. At least they got the beneficiary group right. We do have to, I mean, we shouldn't. There is the legacy of slavery and Jim Crow laws. We don't owe the homeless. We don't owe feminists. We don't owe women who are desirous of having abortions, but or gays who want to get married to one another. That's what civil rights has become for much of the left. They dropped the blacks after 5 minutes.
Immigrant rights are not civil rights?
No, I think civil rights are for blacks. That's why the Democrats are dropping the blacks and moving on to the Hispanics, because they're a larger group of Hispanics now. But could I just say to Jorge, I hate to disagree with you when you're attacking President Obama, but I think the point on immigration is you can have open borders or you can have a welfare state. You cannot have both.
Given these demographic trends, Republican leaders worry that if they keep losing Hispanic voters by that much, they'll lose their chances of ever winning the presidency. So in 2013, some key Republicans in the Senate, including the rising star Marco Rubio, collaborate with Democrats on an immigration reform bill that would give unauthorized immigrants a path to legal status. But there's a huge backlash from the Republican Party's predominantly white base, which views the bill as amnesty for immigrants who broke the rules. This exacerbates the GOP voters' mistrust in their own party leaders, a mistrust that has already been growing for some time. And that makes the political landscape of 2015 fertile ground for a figure like Donald Trump, an outsider businessman who wants to build a wall on the border of Mexico. Trump isn't a traditional conservative, but he appealed to the resentment and the mistrust of party leaders that Republican primary voters had, as well as the strong opposition to growing immigration trends.
I am officially running for President of the United States. I will build a great, great wall on our southern border, and I will have Mexico pay for that wall. Mark my words. When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists. And some, I assume, are good people that are killers and rapists. I mean, they're coming into this country. Mexico treats us as though we are stupid people, which, of course, our leaders are.
The only thing if I get regret is if I get killed too. I wish I could kill more of those motherfuckers. Kill more cops too.
Hundreds of young black conservatives gathered in our nation's capital on Friday and over the weekend for a leadership summit hosted by Turning Point USA at, as you can see, the White House.
All right, during the summit, the movement known as Blexit was launched in an effort to help African-American voters exit the Democratic Party.
My wife is a Mexican American. She's an American by choice. She loves this country as much as anybody in this room. And she wants a secure border, but she wants to embrace the traditional American values that make us special and make us unique. We're at a crossroads right now. Are we going to take the Reagan approach, the hopeful, optimistic approach, the approach that says that you come to our country legally, you pursue your dreams with a vengeance, you create opportunities for all of us, or the Donald Trump approach? The approach that says that everything is bad, that everything is coming to an end.
Mr. Trump.
I'm on the Reagan side of this.
That they come into our country as an act of love. With all of the problems that we have in so many instances, we have wonderful people coming in. But with all of the problems, this is not an act of love.
Trump has actually talked a lot about unemployment in the African American community and how we have to pay more attention to that as politicians. That was his message. Yeah. Do you think he could get the African American vote, a substantial portion, more than other Republicans in the past?
African Americans, like any other American, would like to make more money, have more stability, see a more robust job market, and I think any candidate that speaks to those issues has a chance of winning that vote.
He should be president of the United States. That's what he should be. He should be president of the United States. Why are people mad at the people? Because this is who the people want to be president.
Well, Donald Trump is what Americans love. Donald Trump is what Americans aspire to be. Rich, powerful, do what you want to do, say what you want to say, be how you want to be.
First of all, I've known Donald before he became the Donald. And Donald is not a racist. Now, I hate to tell people, just because you build a wall doesn't mean you're a racist.
So you Democrats, you've been in that party a long time. Answer me, what did you get? You got a president. He's worried about his legacy. But you didn't earn your legacy with us. We put you there. You fought for the rights of gay people. You fought for the rights of this people and that people. Your people are suffering and dying in the streets. That's where your legacy is. Now you failed to do what should have been done.
Black patriarch